Shalom. Dinner and Learn, Thursday, January 17, 2013. We'll read with Tanya, chapter 6, with Rabbi Yarden.
So, today we've been discussing the chapters of the Tanya, and today we're starting chapter 6. I'll give you an introduction so that we're all on the same page. It's something today, until now we've been discussing, we laid out a framework that there's two souls. There's a godly soul as well as a human soul. We explained a lot about the godly soul and the godly searching that we all experience. And now the Tanya starts to focus on us, on the human soul. And that's what I want to talk about today. A little bit, categorize it, frame it a little bit more. Something I touched upon by Lunch and Learn. I know I have 2 Lunch and Learn members today. I want to take a slightly deeper look at that for a second. The question, there's 3 categories found. One is holy or positive. One is negative or evil. And then there's that gray area, somewhere in the middle. The holy and positive, according to Tanya's outlines, from coming from a godly spot, the godly soul. The negative or evil is claimed to come from the gimel klibas tameos, from the evil side, evil inclination, the negative things. And then there's that neutral zone, and that's what I want to talk about a little bit today. How do we know certain things? We don't know if they're right, we don't know if they're wrong. We know it's right to give charity. We know it's right to give time to somebody. We know it's right to pray, to meditate. We know it's right to go to a meeting. These are things that we know are right. We don't have questions about those things. We know it's wrong. In the program, we know it's wrong. We know that, for example, using our drug of choice is wrong. We know other things like that that are wrong, and that's wrong. But then there's gray area. There's things that we're not sure about. Things that are the middle ground. And how do we know if it's right or if it's wrong? I know we discussed here, I think 2 weeks ago, about sometimes people overcompensate in one area to ignore another area. They'll say that, this week I'm going to go to 6 meetings, but I didn't have a chance to call my sponsor. And in essence what they're saying is I didn't want to call my sponsor, so I over meetings thinking that would make up for it. Or I didn't do a 4th step, but I did a lot of 12-step work. Or, I'm back and forth about the different solutions. And the question sometimes become, sometimes it's obvious, it's an excuse, and sometimes they're presented with a true dilemma. Which one is the right choice at hand? Should I be praying, or should I be doing some 12-step work? Should I be working on meditation, or should I be at a meeting? Should I be reading more, or should I be, and so on and so forth? There's sometimes 2 options available, and the question is which one to choose. Sometimes it's obvious which one, and sometimes it's a little bit tricky, and the question is which one makes it right. This is what I want to talk about a little bit today, about that idea, the idea of how do we discern what's truthfully right and truthfully wrong. And someone asked me a question this week. They said, before Adam and Eve were in the garden, and before they ate from the tree of knowledge, what did they know? It says the tree of knowledge was that of good and of evil. So they knew things, they just didn't do good and evil. That was what they had done. So the question becomes, what did they do? If you're not doing good, you're not doing evil, what are you doing? There's nothing to do. Everything's either good or evil. That's the way it is. Everything falls into a category. And the question I think I threw off at the time with a lighter answer, and today I want to bring it to a deeper answer because I think it goes hand in hand. A person naturally, the way the Tanya outlines, the way a person is, naturally in their natural spiritual plane, is someone that will always turn to God's will. Naturally, that's our turning. Naturally, we're godly inclined. In other words, if someone came to us and said, if you do these simple things, it'll work, that's what we want to do. Doesn't make a difference what those simple things are. It's what we want to do no matter what. This works, let's do it. Yet there's something that gets in the way of that. There's something that stops us from doing what works. Kids in school. Kids go to school. And they're there to learn something. And in essence, the teacher is telling them, if you do this, you're going to excel, you're going to succeed, you're going to grow. This is for your own benefit. Why wouldn't they listen? What's holding them back from listening? They're sitting there anyways. Remember there was a time when a teacher was absent for an extended period of time, and we had a choice of either goofing off or using the time to study. And of course we chose the goofing off approach. It was a series of days. And finally the principal came in and he was telling us off for it. And we said, well, get a teacher in the room. What are we supposed to do? And he said, the teacher teaching is for himself. You learning is for yourself. A year from now, whether the teacher has a job or not doesn't make a difference to you. A year from now, whether you know the material or not doesn't make a difference to the teacher. You have to do your part and he has to do his part. And it's a very true point. So what's holding a student back from learning? Many people we hear in the program, they go in, and we say, we know we have an issue, but we don't want to do the work. We want the solution. What does that mean? What's stopping that process? We know what we have to do to get there. There's unfortunately sports teams that they're like that. They say we want to be the best team, but we don't do any of the work to get there. And they go out there and they get clobbered. They end up like part of the matting of whatever stadium they're in. And we see it. And then there are those who do the work and they get where they need to succeed. So what holds that back? And it's brought down in Tanya as well as in other places that a person would always do the spiritual, godly, right will unless a ruach shtus, a spirit of folly would enter him or her. A spirit of folly. It says that's what turns someone away. Now we think about it for a second, it seems to make sense. In other words, let's say we're trying to eat healthy. It makes sense. You eat healthy, it helps our systems out, we don't have to be to the doctor as much, we'll be in shape, we'll have more energy, we'll be able to think clear, we'll get more out of sleep, we'll be in less pain. Everything seems good. Or we can eat the junk food to get that momentary pleasure, and then we get all the issues that come along with it. But what happens is not that we plan on it. It's not that we wake up in the morning and we say, at least me, I'm going to have a day today where I'm going to eat healthy, have that junk food healthy, and then, I'm going to place myself in front of cookies and make sure I eat them. No, typically what we do is we pack our lunches, and then we happen to walk into work and someone said, there's 6 extra donuts to Donut? Let's get it. That's a spirit of folly. That's something that entered us that we never planned on being there, that got in the way of our plan. It turned us off the path we wanted to be on.
A spirit of what?
Of folly.
Folly. Okay.
A spirit of folly, a ruach shtus, a shtus, I don't know how you translate it into English. Shtus is like
Stupidity, imbecility.
It's something that got in the way of what we wanted to do, our plan. How many of us, we wake up in the morning, so we're going to pray today. And then things get in the way. It's not like we planned on things getting in the way, but things get in the way of us praying. Things crop up. It was an emergency. I checked my phone and there was 6 emails that had to be answered. I took care of those, and then the bagel was burning, and the fire alarm went off, and then the neighbor called about the dog outside. I don't know, the whole thing falls apart. That's a spirit of folly getting in the way of what we planned. And the Tanya outlines that is what stops us from doing the path we plan on doing. In other words, a person that would never have a spirit of folly would be on a completely spiritual path. But the spirit of folly starts with small things, and then slowly we get deterred, and then obviously nature takes its course. That's what he explains. And therefore, what he explains is that before Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, there was none of this spirit of folly. There was nothing that got in the way of the service of the spiritual path. It was just natural. You took the spiritual path. There was just no other way about it. There was nothing got in the way. You said you're going to pray, you're going to pray. You said you're going to eat healthy, you ate healthy. There was nothing that would deter, nothing that would detract, nothing that would turn someone off that path that they had chosen. And they would choose the right path because they never made a wrong choice. So the question, though, is a tree of good and of evil. It's both. So what's the good? In other words, that's the natural thing. Those who are spiritual, with never being not spiritual, how spiritual are they? In other words, those who have never had challenges, how perseverant are they? What does it mean that I'm really real if I've never been tested? A man and woman are walking by looking for houses, and this lightning struck a house. And the wife says, well, I guess it's not going to be that house. And the man says, of course it's going to be that house. This one's lightning-proof because they already got hit by lightning. Which house have you ever got hit twice, But it was tested and proven. This is real. This really works. Sometimes the people that, when you see people in business that they've messed up, that they built themselves back up, you say, well, that person can weather a storm. What about other people? Can they weather storms? How would it work? When I was looking originally to move out in different postings, I ended up here. But one of the things I was looking for was being a rabbi of a community. It was one of the positions offered. And I had someone advise me. They said, you want to find a community that's had fights and see how they handled it. Because everyone has struggles. Everyone has ups and downs. And when you're the leader of that community, those ups and downs are directly going to affect you. And the communities have already weathered the storm. You see how they weathered the storm, and you can know that you're okay in their hands. With someone that hasn't weathered the storm, they're going to turn on, you don't know what could happen, and you're going to be the one in the shooting zone to find out. And it was interesting advice at the time, but this is the difference. Before they ate from the tree, they were just doing the natural course. There was no challenge. There was no adversity. There was no spirit of folly, but therefore there was also no spirit of positivity. There's no spirit on the opposite way of perseverance. There's no overcoming challenges. And this is the middle ground. In other words, we outlined earlier in the beginning of this class that there's the good, what we know is right, the wrong, what we know is wrong, and the middle ground. How do we know what to do? But the middle ground has the greatest potential for evil and the greatest potential for good, because this is our domain. This is our area. This is our spirit that could be either of folly or of positivity. It's what we make of it. What are we going to do in this situation? And now that we're starting to identify what this middle ground is, you understand what it is practically, not just theoretically, but practically. I was at a conference, an anti-bullying conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, on Wednesday. I flew in and flew out in one day. It was tiring, exhausting, and not very smart. But I was at a workshop by Barbara Colaroso. And she was giving a workshop on anti-bullying. But one of her things is she studies genocide. That's one of the things around the world. And she comes up with different ideas and stuff. And she had a lot of stories and stuff. And she's got books out there about it. And she's writing a new book. I think it's called Be Good. And it's stories of utter goodness that she has found in this mass evil. And that's what she's writing about. Her book that will be coming out. To me, it's very interesting. But the question to me, taking it a step further, sometimes you hear these amazing stories that people did in utter evil. She told a story about these kids whose parents were part of a genocide. They were killing out a community, and the kids were hiding the community people from their own parents. She said it's such amazing how great the kids were in the face of their own parents. And then she tries to go on and explain what causes it. But the question is, and this is something that the Lubavitch Rebbe asks, he said, when you're great in darkness, that's one thing. Because in other words, the surroundings set us up to be great. In other words, the surroundings set us up either black or white. Either you're going to be completely evil or completely great. You're either going to make the right decision or the wrong decision. And in such situations, there is a certain black and whiteness. It's hard, because if everyone's doing one way, you're obviously swept that way. If you break away, there's no middle ground. You're doing if you break away, if you're not part of the crew, then you're doing the exact opposite. And what he challenges, he says, what about when everyone's doing nothing? When there is no adversity, when there is no challenge, when there is no open genocide, can you still do the utter right thing? And he challenges that's actually harder then. Because then it's very melancholy. It's very calm. It's nothing, it's nothing out of the ordinary. Can you still rise to the challenge? The example of if a woman has a child stuck under a car, she can lift up the car and get her child out. Well, can she lift up the car when there is no child under the car? And in a day-to-day life, when we have a challenge, we can rise to the challenge or we can fail to the challenge. We can do the utter good. We can do the mitzvah, the connection, the right decision. Or we can do the utter evil. We can do the avera. We can make the wrong decision when we have a challenge. What about when we don't? We always say that when we get to the end, when someone's already slipping up and failing, well, what did you do yesterday? It's not so much today what's getting us in trouble. What did we do yesterday? Because the yesterday matters the most. Those of us who are already at the challenge say, I'm struggling, I don't know what to do. I got to throw myself back into the program, or I'm going to fall off, or whatever. Those are the extremes. What about before that? Before it became so clear, in the gray area, did I make the right decisions or not? And those are harder because there's no clear adversity. There's no clear challenge. There's no clear threats. But if I invest now, I'm investing in a safe time when I won't ever come to those challenges. That's the gray area. Obviously, I can do a mitzvah. Obviously, I don't want to do an avera. But what about with my free choice? And there's a lot of things that are a free choice. The shtus, the middle ground. Do I turn it to the negative or do I turn it to the positive? I'm allowed to eat. I'm going to eat. I'm going to enjoy. That's an example on Tuesday I gave. Or am I eating because I want the energy to do good? It's the same act. I'm enveloping the same food. I'm eating healthy. I'm eating exactly what he told me to eat. But why am I eating? Is it for self-service or is it for another reason? And the Tanya outlines how do we know to make the right choice is based on shtus or kedusha, as the two words used, which is the folly or the holiness. And he says the difference is it ego-driven or non-ego-driven at the very core roots? And that applies to everything. If I'm eating for self-service, then it's ego-driven. If I'm eating because it's a spiritual thing to take care of my health, then that's not ego-driven. It can be the exact same action just to eat the food. Am I taking care of my health because I want to look good? Or am I taking care of my health because it's a spiritual thing to be physically fit? And this is the exact same action. This is the middle ground. And when we wage the war in the safe zone, the middle ground, the gray area, we never come to the black and the white. We don't have to. Obviously, we still have to do the good and not do the evil. We never come to that's where the struggle is, because we've put up the boundary lines. We've put up the defining area of where it should be. It should be in this area of our day-to-day lives. And this is also the greatest fight that could be. Because eating something that we just do naturally, there's nothing wrong with it. Why shouldn't I do that? Am I relaxing for self-service? Or am I relaxing because of the necessary process of maintaining who I am? Am I helping others? Helping others already moving into a very different area, but helping others for a self-service? Or am I helping others because it's a necessary part of who I am? And it's the exact same action. It's the exact same thing being done. But one is done specifically for self-service, and one is done specifically for a holistic service. And it's the exact same thing. And this is what he calls the spirit, because not spirit as in like a soul, but spirit as in like a wind. It can be blown either way. We could blow this simply this way or simply that way. And by blowing it one way, we're increasing massively in the positive way we live. And the other way you blow, eventually it can lead us astray. Just like any wind can take a boat in either direction. This is what we have. And we have the sails. We have the keys. We have the way of steering the ship to which way we want to go. And this would be the spirit that he talks about. And therefore, where did this come to exist? It's from Adam and Eve. When they ate in the garden, this is what was created. This middle ground, this gray area. The gray area that we always struggle with. The okay zone, the no man's land. Have you guys ever played Capture the Flag or any of those other sports where you have your side, their side, and then the no man's land where you can do whatever you like? And this is what was created. And therefore, what we're doing in our lives is trying to undo the act of Adam and Eve. We're trying to redefine the gray area in black and white terms. We're trying to bring back that definition. And this is what he begins to talk about in chapter 6. I'm going to pause. We'll take questions.
I